Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about on Together is better in life. Speed is often celebrated. The first to the finish line, the first to market, the one who rises quickly through the ranks. We glorify the lone wolf, the self-made individual, the person who seems to move with lightning pace, unencumbered by the weight of others. We point and say, look how fast they are. We admire the sprint. But what we often overlook is the question, how long can they keep going? Speed is seductive. It gives the illusion of success, but speed without direction, without connection is short-lived. You can run fast alone, but eventually the fuel runs out. You hit walls, you get tired. And when you're alone, there's no one to help you carry the weight. There's no one to pass the baton to when your legs give out. There's no one to catch you. When you stumble, that's where the power of together begins to shine, because together we go far, not just in distance, but in depth, in meaning, in resilience. The strongest teams, the most impactful movements, the most lasting achievements, they aren't the product of solo effort. They're built on shared strength, on people walking shoulder to shoulder through the wins and the setbacks, through the easy steps and the uphill climbs. When one stumbles, the others lift them. When one tires, the rest adjust the pace. And when one forgets the why, the others remind them. Together doesn't mean slower. It means smarter. It means sustainable. It means carrying wisdom forward that one mind alone could never see. There's a reason ancient explorers traveled in groups. There's a reason soldiers train in squads. There's a reason families thrive in support systems, not in isolation. The journey is long. The road is winding, storms come, uncertainty arrives, and in those moments, speed becomes irrelevant. What matters then is whether you have people around you, people who believe in the mission and in each other. When you work alone, your capacity is limited by your own experience, your own energy, your own sightline. You only see what's directly ahead. But when you move with others, you benefit from their perspectives, their ideas, their strength when you run low. You create something greater than the sum of its parts. Collaboration multiplies capacity. In a world that often equates independence with strength, it's radical to lean on someone else. It's brave to say, I need help, or let's do this together, but that is where the real power begins. Power that doesn't burn out. Power that endures. Power that evolves. Trust is the invisible force that turns a group of individuals into a team. It doesn't come with job titles, and it doesn't arrive simply by putting people in the same room. It's not a checkbox on a list. It's something built slowly, deliberately in the spaces between people. In the small moments, the quiet gestures, the shared glances that say, I've got you. Teams can be filled with talent, brilliance, drive, but without trust, they fracture under pressure. The foundation crumbles when the weight of uncertainty sets in. The absence of trust breeds silence, defensiveness, and fear. People hold back. They hide mistakes. They protect themselves instead of the mission. The energy that could move mountains gets trapped in survival mode. But when trust is present, everything changes. It unlocks speed. It unlocks creativity. It turns workplaces into communities and organizations into movements. In a trusted space, people don't have to waste energy watching their backs. They use that energy to build, to dream, to go beyond what they thought possible. Trust becomes the safety net that lets people leap without fear of falling alone. It doesn't take grand declarations to create trust. It takes consistency, showing up, listening without judgment, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, admitting when you're wrong. Trust is not demanded, it's earned, and once it's earned, it can carry a team through the most difficult storms. An unstoppable team doesn't mean a team that never struggles. It means a team that, no matter what they face, refuses to splinter. They fall and rise together. They speak truth even when it's hard. They fight for each other, not against each other. They don't compete for credit, they compete for the cause. Trust makes conflict healthy. It makes feedback valuable instead of threatening. It turns tension into growth. People feel safe enough to disagree, to push each other, to challenge ideas not because they want to win, but because they want to make the team stronger. That's what unstoppable looks like. Not perfect harmony, but perfect safety, to be real, honest, and driven together. It's tempting to build teams around skill sets and experience, but trust is the multiplier that makes those things matter. You can have a team full of top performers, but if they don't trust each other, their brilliance will cancel itself out. One misstep becomes a blame game. One mistake becomes a fracture. But if trust runs deep, mistakes become lessons. Failures become turning points. And people move forward together, not in silence, but in solidarity. Trust is what makes people stay. In a world where opportunities are endless and attention is short, people don't stay because of the paycheck or the perks. They stay because they feel seen. They stay because someone has their back. They stay because they are trusted to rise, to grow, to try. That's what builds loyalty. That's what builds legacy. There's something powerful about walking into a room where you truly know that you don't have to be perfect to be respected. That you don't have to hide your doubts to be heard. That you can fail and still be believed in. That's the environment trust creates. And it's in that environment that the boldest ideas emerge. The greatest breakthroughs happen. Because fear no longer controls the room. When teams trust each other, they move like one. Not in uniformity, but in unity. Diverse minds, different strengths, countless stories all pulling in the same direction. That kind of team doesn't break under pressure. It adapts, it sharpens, it evolves. Goals are important. They give us targets to aim at, a finish line to chase, a way to measure progress. They create structure, direction, clarity. But goals alone are not enough. You can hit every metric, break every record, and still feel empty. You can reach the summit and realize you climbed the wrong mountain. Because true purpose, the kind that fuels you, anchors you, and lights a fire in your soul, is not found in what you achieve. It's found in who you walk with, who you lift up, and who you become along the way. Purpose is human. It lives in connection. It's not just in crossing the line, it's in the hands that held you up, the voices that encouraged you, the stories that moved beside yours. When people are reduced to tasks and titles, when relationships become transactions and not bonds, something essential is lost. We become machines checking boxes, not humans living meaningfully. You can chase goals for years, numbers, milestones, external validation, and still feel like something is missing. Because purpose isn't a destination, it's an experience. It's not. Somewhere you arrive, it's how you move through the world, and when you focus only on the end result, you miss the richness of the journey. You miss the people sitting beside you in the struggle, the laughter in the late nights, the lessons in the shared failures, the triumph in the collective wins. Goals give us movement. People give us meaning. Some of the most powerful moments in any pursuit are never written into the objectives. They're the unplanned moments, the times someone showed up when they didn't have to, the conversations that changed your thinking, the encouragement that pulled you through. Those aren't goalposts, they're people, and they're the reason we keep going. Even in high-performing environments, the greatest sense of fulfillment doesn't come from the scoreboard. It comes from belonging, from being part of something greater than yourself, from feeling like your contribution matters not just to the outcome, but to someone else's journey. That's the heartbeat of purpose, feeling connected. And that connection isn't built through hitting targets, it's built through trust, care, and shared commitment. In places where people are seen only as resources, burnout thrives. Cynicism takes root. People chase harder, but they feel less. They win, but they lose themselves. Because without a sense of shared humanity, achievement starts to feel hollow. But when people are valued, when relationships are nurtured, when the culture puts people before numbers, something shifts. Work becomes a place of meaning, not just motion. Success feels like a collective triumph, not a lonely reward. Purpose deepens when we see each other, when we celebrate not just the output, but the individual behind it. When we listen with intention, when we care beyond performance, when we understand that people are not tools to reach a goal, they are the reason for the goal. No great movement in history was ever about a number, it was about people. It's driven by belief, unity, hope, and courage. It was fueled by shared humanity. In the same way, our own personal and professional lives become significant when they are rooted in others. When we wake up not just to achieve, but to serve. When our ambition is not to stand alone at the top, but to bring others with us. It's easy to get caught in the grind, to let goals become the only lens through which we see success. But when we slow down, even for a moment, we often remember the truth, that it wasn't the trophy we held that we talk about years later, it was who stood beside us. It wasn't the deal we closed, but the team that made it possible. It wasn't the title, it was the people we mentored, the lives we touched. The way we shelter leadership is not defined by position, title, or authority. It's not about sitting at the top of the hierarchy or giving orders that others follow. Being in charge is an assignment, but truly leading is a responsibility. It's not about power over people, but the commitment to serve the people in your care. The greatest leaders aren't the ones who demand to be followed. They're the ones who inspire others to walk with them. There's a myth we're often taught that leadership is about control, that the one who speaks the loudest, stands the tallest, or commands the most attention is the one in charge. But true leadership is quiet. It listens before it speaks. It lifts before it climbs. It understands that influence comes not from fear or authority, but from trust and example. Anyone can bark orders. Anyone can delegate tasks, but not everyone can create loyalty. Not everyone can build a culture where people feel safe, empowered, and seen. That's what separates those who manage from those who lead. Real leadership doesn't just move the team forward. It moves people deeper into belief in themselves, belief in each other, and belief in what they're building together. Leadership begins with responsibility not for results, but for people. It means asking the harder questions, not just what did we accomplish, but how are we doing? It means noticing when someone's carrying more than they can hold. It means being the first to admit a mistake, the first to take accountability, and the last to take credit. Leadership is humility in action. It's not about being the hero. It's about making others feel like they're capable of becoming heroes in their own story. Some of the most impactful leaders are not the ones you notice immediately. They don't always stand in front of the spotlight. They're often found in the background, encouraging, supporting, pushing others forward. They're the ones who stay late to help someone struggling. They're the ones who remember a teammate's hard day and ask about it the next morning. They don't lead because it's their job. They lead because they care. When people feel led, truly led, something remarkable happens. They begin to take ownership, not because they have to, but because they want to. They feel connected to the mission and to one another. They feel safe enough to take risks, to speak up, to try again. Leadership creates a culture of belief. It invites people to bring not just their skills, but their hearts. And when that happens, teams become families. Work becomes purpose. Obstacles become challenges worth overcoming together. A leader's strength isn't measured in how much control they exert. It's measured in how much trust they create. It's measured in the space they make for others to rise. It's not about being the smartest in the room, but being wise enough to listen, to learn, to lift the wisdom in others. Real leaders surround themselves with people who are better than them, stronger than them, more skilled in areas they're not, and they celebrate it. Because leadership is not a performance, it's a service. It requires courage not to dominate, but to be vulnerable. To say, I don't know, but I'll find out. To say, let's solve this together. It means leading with heart, not ego. With vision, not fear. It's in the daily acts, the consistency, the empathy, the willingness to stand up for someone who feels invisible. It's in the trust you build one moment at a time until people know that no matter how hard it gets, they're not facing it alone. Courage is often mistaken for something loud, the grand gesture, the dramatic leap, the space. But most of the time, courage is quiet. It's the decision to try again. It's the whisper that says, keep going when everything inside says stop. And though it lives within us, courage doesn't grow in isolation, it grows in community. It grows when we're seen, when we're supported, and when we're reminded we're not alone in the fight. There is something deeply human about the way courage responds to connection. Alone, fear can sound overwhelming. Doubt can feel like truth. Our inner critic becomes the only voice we hear. But place a person inside a community where others believe in them, and everything begins to change. They don't suddenly become fearless, they become braver. Bravery is not the absence of fear, it's the choice to move forward in spite of it. And that choice becomes easier when others walk beside you. Community doesn't remove the challenge. It changes the context. It transforms a mountain into something that can be climbed together. It reminds us that we don't have to have all the answers, that we don't have to carry the weight alone. When we fall, community says you don't have to get up by yourself. When we doubt ourselves, someone else reminds us of our wisdom. We often think of courage as something we must summon internally. But the truth is, the most courageous people are almost always surrounded by others who remind them of who they are when they forget. Real community doesn't just support success. It supports failure too. It holds space for fear, for uncertainty, for silence. It doesn't push people to be perfect. It pulls people back when they feel like they're falling apart. Courage in its purest form is contagious. One act of bravery in a connected environment sparks another. Someone speaks up and suddenly others find their voice. Someone takes a step into the unknown and others realize they're capable of stepping too. In community, courage becomes a rhythm. It becomes a rising tide that lifts not just the strongest, but everyone. In places where people feel they must prove their worth, courage suffocates. But in places where people feel accepted as they are, courage breathes. And when it breathes, it expands. It reaches places in the heart that logic cannot. It pushes past limitations. It dares to dream out loud. It dares to risk. Not because the fear disappears, but because the foundation beneath is solid. True community isn't built on shallow connections. It's built on authenticity, vulnerability, and consistent presence. It's built when people choose to show up, even when it's inconvenient. When they celebrate not just your highs, but stand beside you in the low points. That's when courage roots itself deeply. That's when people stop performing strength and begin living it. Sometimes all it takes to spark courage in someone is to tell them, I see you, I hear you, I believe in you. These are simple words, but in a culture of pressure and perfectionism, they are revolutionary. They allow people to let down their guard, and in that openness, real bravery is born. We often measure a life by the results it produces, the goals achieved, the records broken, the empires built. But legacy isn't carved into spreadsheets or trophies. It's etched into the hearts of people. It's not about what you leave behind in terms of numbers. It's about who you leave behind and how they feel because you were part of their story. Real legacy is relational. It's not measured in volume. It's measured in depth. The impact of a person's life is never truly understood through their accomplishments alone. It's felt in the quiet moments, the way they made someone feel heard, the time they stayed a little longer, the encouragement they gave when it wasn't required. People remember how you treated them long after they forget what you achieved. Results might earn recognition, but relationships earn remembrance. There's a difference between success and significance. Success may get your name known, but significance means your influence lives on in others. When you pour into people not for what they can do for you, but because you genuinely care, you create something lasting. You build bridges that continue carrying people forward even after you're no longer walking beside them. The truth is, results fade, records get broken, positions get replaced. What never fades is the ripple effect of kindness, generosity, empathy it presents. One conversation can alter a life. One act of compassion can stay with someone forever. When we choose to focus on people, we become more than what we produce. We become part of a legacy that multiplies through every life we touch. No one remembers the quarterly report 10 years later, but they remember who believed in them when they had nothing to show. They remember the leader who treated them like they mattered before they had titles, experience, or confidence. They remember the person who looked them in the eye and said, "You're capable, you belong. You have what it takes." That is legacy. Not just the work you did, but the belief you planted. Sometimes we get so caught up in performance that we forget the point. Results are fleeting by nature, they're momentary, tied to deadlines and data. But relationships are built in the long arc. They stretch beyond time. They build trust, belonging, and transformation. A person may leave your team or your company, but they carry with them what it felt like to be led by you, to be seen by you, to be respected by you. Legacy isn't loud. It's not always obvious. It doesn't need a plaque or a spotlight. Often it's written in the background, in the way you spoke to someone who was struggling, in the patience you showed when others didn't, in the way you stayed consistent when it would have been easier to give up. These moments may seem small in real time, but they leave deep marks. The most enduring legacies are not built through personal victories, but through collective rising. When you elevate others, when you mentor, when you sacrifice your spotlight so someone else can shine, you begin to live beyond yourself. Legacy is not about being remembered for being the best. It's about being remembered for helping others become their best.